So, and you can put 15 minutes on your phone? Okay.
How y'all doing today?
Very good. How are you guys?
Today was yesterday.
How long are you waiting out there for us to appear?
Honestly, just got here. I was in the class.
Where are y'all
Good
from?
time.
From Baltimore.
Okay. I'm from New Orleans, so like just 2 hours away from here, so.
Baton Rouge.
It's a far way to come for a assignment, or are you in the
Well,
university?
we go to UL, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. All right, so we have a couple of questions. We might like deviate from it
Sure,
as long as, keep conversation up. So the first question is, how did you spot your opportunity and how did it come about and or develop? So you can answer the first question. How did you spot the opportunity?
Just a bit of background. I've been working in translational medical research for about 15 years.
Okay.
I got into it because I wanted to help patients. And I got my master's, was in my doctorate program, and kept noticing that the more work we did, the more tech we developed, the more it was being used to take advantage of patients. So I was getting kind of burnt out, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then you had news of, you had Valiant Pharmaceuticals, you had Mylan. Those are the two big ones. Where they're basically just.
Really?
Yeah, that's Valiant.
Yeah, I guess that's Valiant.
Martin Shkreli and Heather Bresch just gouging the patients, and I lost my temper. I was like, this is ridiculous. How are they able to do it? And I started looking into how they were able to do it, and we came up with a way where you can kind of get around what these big companies have been doing, get through the barriers and introduce competition.
Okay. And so do y'all design, there's medication or is it, I know in my class we talk about like the EpiPen, is it something like y'all trying to battle with like the medicine? That makes sense, like
we have to be very careful what we say.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
It's more of an approach.
Okay.
Where we saw an opportunity to overcome or at least skirt most of the barriers to entry.
Yeah.
We realized that the market is completely stressed because you have monopolies that are completely artificial. So we said, hey, why are they able to do this? Why is no one doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
And coming from academia, I was like, well, this idea should work. Why is no one doing it?
Yeah.
So the first day, it was like a lightning bolt. I couldn't believe, why is no one doing this? That night, I was Googling patents.
Yeah.
The next day, I was just asking lawyer friends, just calling around, asking lawyers, trying to get my hands on some of the product we'd be working with. Monday, finally got them in my hands, and Monday night, I had pulled everything apart, drawn up designs, and then Tuesday, I actually went to sleep. So it was, and from then on, today's the day I find out why no one's doing this. And at some point, we got to, we need to pay money to figure out why no one's doing this. So we incorporated.
Okay.
I had a friend who's a corporate lawyer. She's like, well, that's what you need to do. So we did. And then slowly, it got to, from waking up saying, today's the day we figure out why no one's doing this, to, well, darn, I guess we're doing it.
Amazing.
And, so you said, like, how did we decide? I didn't really decide.
It's kind of like, okay.
It's a slow and gradual process.
Okay. And so I guess you kind of answered that question saying how did you come about or develop it, but you just kind of explained how you did your research. You saw some patents, you kind of came up with your own idea.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that no one was doing what we're doing, which honestly it's a stupidly simple idea.
Right.
That just
that nobody really looked into. But that's
a lot of companies. You say that, and then you look at companies like Twitter.
Yeah. No, so that's, you guys familiar with Paul Graham?
No.
So Paul Graham started Y Combinator.
Okay.
And he has a wonderful, wonderful blog where he talks about all sorts of things. And one of the things he talks about is what VCs are looking for. He said VCs are torn by two emotions. One, they don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
Two, they don't want to miss the next big thing. It's like the problem is the next big thing often looks like a very stupid idea.
Yeah, that's so true.
So we're like, oh, this is so stupid. Why is no one doing this?
That's why every investor loves being the second investor in a company.
Yeah.
Like, oh, someone already has done that like first leap of faith.
Yeah.
Let's just pile on.
Yeah.
That's very
That's
true.
true.
It's the courageous follower.
Exactly.
Boss say till you could read the next.
So to kind of like piggyback off of it, like what were some goals that you guys had when you first started? Like, what did you like kind of wish to achieve?
Honestly, I wanted to know why no one's doing it.
Basically, one of the main goals that we had from starting it was we looked at the overall medical sector, looked at all these drugs, these price hikes going up by like 600% over the course of 6 years, 5,000% over even shorter time. And we realized that oftentimes what's happening is, like with the Scraley case, it wasn't even that they had a patent on this drug, it was that they bought the like rights to produce it, and because it's such a niche, it's like only certain companies have the ability to manufacture it, there's not enough competition for controlled pricing, even out of patent a lot of the times. So what ends up happening though is you have these drugs that are necessary for a patient's life, like literally either they have it or they're dead. And then they're presented with this pharmaceutical company which is realizing, hey, we can just keep jacking up the price and it doesn't matter what we charge them, they have to pay it. And sometimes it's the patient themselves paying, sometimes it's the insurance company paying, sometimes it's a weird combination thereof or some sort of very complicated rebate program. The costs often get deferred amongst many complicated players in this massively convoluted healthcare system. But overall, you're still having a pharmaceutical company charging many multiples of what should actually be charged. And it's basically just a broken system. So we came at it from the perspective of how do we look at these type of technologies, see what are ways that we can provide the same service to the end patient at essentially not quite at cost because we need to make a profit, but similar to other industries wherein there is competition and people charge based on a reasonable margin that allows them to make a profit rather than what the patient is actually capable of paying. It should be based on the cost of production rather than arbitrary, we want to make more money.
Yes. And that's very true. I was interested. We got to pick y'all as our company. And I thought it was interesting. My aunt has very like bad allergic reactions, and this could get like to like the point where you have to go into ICU. Like, and I thought that's why I thought it was interesting to pick y'all. It's very true. Some of these medications are like already.
Yeah, like I have one of my best friends. She's deathly allergic to dairy. So anytime if she eats like a salad that there was one drop of cheese in accidentally or like a drop of milk, she goes into anaphylactic shock. We have to stab her with an EpiPen. Like she ends up in the hospital once every couple of months. And like there's.
It's like a necessity.
She has to go through a lot of those things per year.
And to say that some of those things expire is just like it's a lot.
So you have a lot of families who they buy these things and an EpiPen expires after 12 to 18 months. Basically, it's 18 months after they manufactured, around 12 months after purchase. And they can't afford to just be not buying new ones every year. So people are keeping the old ones. A recent
the Canadian shortage.
Exactly. So like the news outlets in Canada recently started saying, you know what, everyone keep your expired EpiPens and use them if you don't have any new ones on hand because.
But no, we've been telling people to do that for years. Like there's a study from the NIH, I think in 2013, 2014, something like that. They're like, they'll stay depending on how you hold on to them, and then
basically like a year after they expire, they're still around 70% effective. Way less if they've been exposed to heat and light.
Don't leave them in your glove box.
Well, most people probably think to leave.
Epinephrine is a very unstable compound, so the more the varying of an environment it's been exposed to, the lower your chances are of actually getting it being successful.
There are some samples that are like 11 years old. They're still 90% effective.
Yeah, so it's very much
like
across
if you keep
the board.
it in your if you keep it in your glove box, it's probably starting to go bad well before the expiration date. If you keep it in your basement, it's probably good for a number of years.
That being said, there have been over 80 cases reported to the FDA in the last couple of years where someone has been stabbed with an expired EpiPen and then ended up seriously hospitalized. 8 people died. Because even though it's mostly effective, the difference between mostly effective and fully effective when it comes to saving someone's life, that's not really good enough.
That's true. So would you say this because it's a very sensitive market and it's very like, how long did you guys have to strategize dealing with all of these? Because I know it's kind of like very tedious and it's very sensitive with dealing with FDA medication.
So I can say that with what we're doing in particular, so there are a bunch of different drugs that that we can work with. And the FDA, I can tell you my first call to them was through their information line. I said, hey, here's my idea. Who do I talk to? Like, can I do it?
Okay.
No.
Wow.
Well, why not? You can do it with this, that, and the other. Like, why not? You just can't. Excuse me, lady. Tell me why not?
Right.
You just can't. Stop telling me no. Tell me why not.
Yeah.
And it took going to her boss's, but all the way to the department chief, and they're like, I don't know who you should be talking to, but it's not me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, we moved through different departments, and they had no idea who we should talk to, because we're kind of doing something from a business model, and from a regulatory standpoint, it's just completely different. It's really cutting the Gordian knot. The system is so convoluted because everyone is there just with their hand out throughout the entire chain, and we're like, well, let's see if we can make this more like a non-regulated market.
It's also through the last year, essentially, that we've been working on it. We've been slowly working at unraveling how the overall healthcare system is put together in terms of where the payments go, who gets to make the decisions as to like what drugs are used, what gets prescribed, where the money flows everywhere.
I mean,
and
EpiPens are a great example, because that's recently been in the news, and we know a lot of stuff in her, in the congressional hearing. Heather Bresch mentioned that for a $640 EpiPen, $650 at the time, Mylan gets about $360 some odd dollars.
Wow.
But when you look at it, think about how much is the insurance company actually paying. So let's say the insurance company is getting $100 off of the $650 price. So they're paying $550. You have all the middlemen in the middle. So you often have a PBM, pharmacy benefit manager. They'll turn around and say, okay, they're the ones in charge of making the formularies for the insurance companies. So insurance companies pay insurance. They're not there to decide who gets what, what they're going to cover. So a PBM can go to the drug manufacturer and say, hey, I'll include this in the formulary. You're selling it for $650. We'll pay you $600 for it. They then turn around to the pharmacies and say, for every time you dispense this, we'll give you $30.
Okay.
Then they turn to the
insurance company
and say, so with I did the numbers wrong.
In that circumstance, they would turn to the insurance company and say, you're going to pay us.
Well, no, because the drug manufacturer with Heather Bresch, they got $362. So the PBM turns to Heather Bresch and says, we'll give you $362 for your $650 EpiPen. And then they turn to the insurance company and they say, well, we got it for $600 or $650, something like that. And the guys in the middle are pulling it in from everyone.
And they're not required to actually disclose their prices.
They have different lists. Not only that, and that's just a simple scenario.
Right.
Then you've got rebates, right? Where as a patient, I don't want to pay a copay, but you can often have someone in the chain and say, hey, I'll pay the $20 copay on a $600 product, sure. And then you also have different companies owning different things. So you could have a PBM that owns a pharmacy. You could have pharmacy that owns an insurance company. So CVS, Aetna. The whole thing gets so complicated. It's like, this is a good thing, right? But then no one wants to do it because everyone's making money the way the system is. So we figured go all the way to the people paying for it.
So she kind of talked about one of our talking points, but I'll say, so it says the financial requirements of the business and the income potential. So we kind of touched on the side of other people making money in this business. So I guess maybe what some of y'all financial requirements did y'all raise? Like, how did y'all raise y'all money? Or?
We're still early in the process of raising funds. One of the biggest costs for us is the fact that because we're dealing with medicine, we need to go through the FDA. It's not quite as we don't have to run like full clinical trials, which is in the tens of millions of dollars, but it still is in the range of millions of dollars to put anything through the FDA. It requires testing, it requires submission fees, it requires consultancy fees.
To give you an idea, the average drug, the average NDA, costs about $2.25 billion to develop.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the normal tradition.